Learn grammar, clauses, noun clause. What is a clause? A clause is a group of words that contains one subject and one verb and is used as a sentence or part of a sentence. When a clause has complete meaning on its own, it can be used as a sentence. But when it has incomplete meaning, it is used as part of a sentence. Look at the following example. My friend helped me. This is a clause. It has one subject and one verb, which is a subject, my friend. Helped is the verb. Now, this clause, my friend helped me, makes complete sense, or it has complete meaning on its own. Therefore, it is used as a sentence. When I was in great danger. This is also a clause, group of words. It contains one subject, I, and a verb, was. So it is a clause, but it does not make complete sense. It has incomplete meaning. So here this clause, when I was in great danger, is used as a part of a sentence. So what is a clause, children? A group of words that contains one subject and one verb, and it is used as a sentence or part of a sentence. When can it be used as a sentence? When it makes complete sense. My friend helped me. It makes complete sense. And when is it used as a part of a sentence? When it has an incomplete meaning or does not make complete sense. Let us understand the types of clauses. There are two types of clauses: independent clause or main clause and dependent clause or subordinate clause. Look at the following examples. The boys went home when the school was over. He told me that he wanted some money. The above sentences have two parts. The parts in red, the boys went home, he told me, have a subject and a verb and can stand alone as a sentence. Hence, they are called independent clause or main clause. The parts in blue, when the school was over, that he wanted some money, cannot stand alone as a sentence. It depends on the main clause. The boys went home, he told me, for its meaning. Hence, they are called dependent or subordinate clause. The subordinating conjunctions are when and that. When is the subordinating conjunction and that is the subordinating conjunction. Note, subordinating conjunctions introduce subordinate clauses. Let us understand this with the help of the examples. The first sentence, the boys went home when the school was over. The boys went home is in red. It is a clause. It has a subject, the boys, and it has a verb, went. Now, this clause can stand alone as a sentence. It makes complete sense. Hence, it is called as the main clause or the independent clause. When the school was over, the part in blue cannot stand alone as a sentence. It is a part of the sentence. It cannot stand alone. It has an incomplete meaning. It depends on this main clause, the boys went home. Therefore, when the school was over is a dependent clause or subordinate clause. And when is the subordinating conjunction. And we know that subordinating conjunctions introduce subordinate clauses. So this subordinating conjunction when has introduced the subordinate clause when the school was over. The second example, he told me, this part in red, it is a clause. It is a main clause. It has a subject he and it has a verb. It can stand alone as a sentence. It makes complete sense. Therefore, it is the main clause. That he wanted some money, this part in blue, is the subordinate clause or the dependent clause. It depends on this main clause, he told me. Therefore, that he wanted some money is the subordinate clause or dependent clause. And that is a subordinating conjunction. And this subordinating conjunction that introduces this subordinate clause, he wanted some money. So this whole thing that he wanted some money is the subordinate clause. So there are two types of clauses, main clause and subordinate clause. The boys went home, main clause. When the school was over, subordinate clause. He told me, main clause, that he wanted some money is the subordinate clause. Types of subordinate clauses. There are three types of subordinate clauses: noun clause, adjective clause or relative clause, and adverb clause. Noun clause. The noun clause is a subordinate clause that functions as a noun. It can be the subject, object, complement of the verb, object of the preposition in a sentence. Noun clause answers the question who, whom, or what before or after the verb or after the preposition. Let us understand this with the help of the following examples. Examples of noun clauses. The noun clause is a subordinate clause, functions as a noun. It can be the subject of a verb. So let us understand how the noun clause can be the subject of a verb. The first sentence, what you told me was a lie. Now, this is a sentence. We have to identify the main clause and the subordinate clause. Where is the main clause? First, you circle the subordinating conjunction. So here, what is the subordinating conjunction? After that, you underline the verb. The first verb is told. The second verb is was. Where the second verb is, you take the sentence from the second verb. So was a lie. So this part of the sentence from the second verb was a lie is the main clause. You have to assume the pronoun it. So you put it in bracket and it was a lie becomes the main clause. What you told me becomes the subordinate clause. Why is it a noun clause? You ask the question what, whom, or who before or after the verb. So here we are asking what was a lie. You're asking it before the verb. What was a lie? So you get the answer what you told me, and therefore it is a subordinate noun clause. Subject of the verb was. Subject of the verb was in the main clause. The second example, that he is a genius is apparent to everyone. Follow the same rule. You circle the subordinating conjunction that. Then you underline the verbs. Which are the verbs? Two verbs are there. Is here and is here. So where the second verb is, from the second verb to the remaining part of the sentence will be your main clause. So this is your main clause. Is apparent to everyone. This it has to be assumed by you. It has to be put in bracket. So it is apparent to everyone is the main clause. You ask the question what, whom, or who. So here what is the most relevant question that you would ask? So what is apparent to everyone? That he is a genius. So therefore that he is a genius is the subordinate noun clause. Subject of the verb is. Why subject? It's also coming before this verb is, and therefore it is subject of the verb. So you are asking the question what either before the verb or after the verb here. So here you are asking it before the verb and therefore it will be subject of the verb. Noun clause, the object of the verb. The noun clause can also be the object of the verb. Look at the following example. I earn whatever I can. In this sentence, we have to first identify the main clause and the subordinate clause. You will first identify the subordinating conjunction. So here it is, whatever. We know that subordinating conjunctions introduce subordinate clause. So whatever I can is the subordinate clause. What kind of a subordinate clause it is? It's a subordinate noun clause. Why is it a subordinate noun clause? When you ask the question what after the verb earn, I earn, you get the answer whatever I can. Therefore, it is a subordinate noun clause, object of the verb earn. It comes after this verb earn. Therefore, it is object of the verb. And I earn is the main clause. The second sentence, I realize that he is a genius. Here also, I realize is the main clause. You circle that or identify that the subordinating conjunction. The subordinating conjunction introduced the subordinate clause. So that he is a genius is the subordinate clause. It is a subordinate noun clause. Why noun clause? You ask the question. I realize. Realize what? You get the answer that he is a genius. Therefore, it is a subordinate noun clause. Object of the verb realize. It is coming after this verb. This clause is coming after this verb realize. When you ask what to this verb, I realize what? You get this answer that he's a genius. So that he's a genius is the subordinate noun clause, object of the verb realize. Noun clause, complement of the verb of incomplete predication. Let us understand what are verbs of incomplete predication. Some intransitive verbs require a word or phrase to complete the predicate and make sense of the sentence. Such verbs are called verbs of incomplete predication. Examples of verbs of incomplete predication is am, are, was, were, become, look, seem, appear, taste, smell, grow, turn. Look at this sentence. The earth is round. So here this word round is complement of this verb is of incomplete predication. This word is required, the word round is required to complete the predicate and make sense of the sentence. So therefore this word round is a complement of this verb is of incomplete predication. Is a verb of incomplete predication. Similarly, we are studying clauses. So here also the clause, the subordinate clause is a complement of this verb is of incomplete predication. Let us understand this with the help of the example. The difficulty is that I have lost it. We have to identify the main clause and the subordinate clause. You will identify first the subordinating conjunction. Here it is that. We know that the subordinating conjunction introduce subordinate clauses. So that I have lost it is the subordinate clause. The difficulty is the main clause. That I have lost it is the subordinate noun clause. Why is it a noun clause? When you ask the question what, who or whom after the verb. So here you are going to ask the question what after this verb of incomplete predication. The difficulty is what? That I have lost it. Therefore, that I have lost it is the subordinate noun clause, complement of the verb. This that I have lost it is the complement of this verb is of incomplete predication. The second sentence, it seems that he is a genius. Again, we have to identify the main clause and the subordinate clause. Circle the subordinating conjunction. The subordinating conjunctions introduce subordinate clause. So that he is a genius is the subordinate clause. It seems is the main clause. Seems is a verb of incomplete predication. Why is that he is a genius a subordinate noun clause? Because when you ask the question what after this verb seems, you get the answer that he is a genius. So therefore, this clause that he is a genius is the subordinate noun clause. complement of this verb seems of incomplete predication. Noun clause, object of the preposition. A noun clause can also be object of the preposition. Look at the following example. Pay attention to what you are doing. We have to identify the main clause and the subordinate clause. You identify first the subordinating conjunction. What is the subordinating conjunction here? What? We know subordinating conjunction introduce subordinate clause. So what you are doing is the subordinate clause. Pay attention to is the main clause. Now we are doing noun clauses, so we ask the question what, who, or whom before the verb, after the verb, or after a preposition also. So here we are asking it after this preposition to. Pay attention to. To what? You get the answer what you are doing. So therefore what you are doing is a subordinate noun clause, object of the preposition to. It is coming after this preposition to, and therefore it is object of the preposition to. The second sentence, I have nothing against what he says. Similarly, here also we have to first identify the main clause and the subordinate clause. First, identify the subordinating conjunction. Here it is what. Subordinating conjunctions introduce subordinate clause. So what he says is the subordinate clause, and I have nothing against is the main clause. For noun clauses, we ask the question what, who, or whom. Here again, I have nothing against what. You get the answer what he says. So therefore what he says is the subordinate noun clause. It is object of this preposition against. It is coming after this preposition against, and therefore it is object of the preposition against. Noun clause, object of the infinitive. The infinitive is also called as a non-finite verb. It is a verb whose form does not change whatever the tense of the sentence may be. Examples of infinitives: to know, to do, to go, to jump, to run. These are all infinitives. Look at the following example. He wanted to know how many people were coming. Here in this sentence, we have to identify the main clause and the subordinate clause. So first you will identify the subordinating conjunction. Here it is how. We know that subordinating conjunctions introduce subordinate clause. So how many people were coming is the subordinate clause, and he wanted to know is the main clause. What kind of a subordinate clause is how many people were coming? It is a subordinate noun clause. Why noun clause? When we ask the question what, who, or whom after the verb, here we will ask the question what after this infinitive to know. He wanted to know. Know what? How many people were coming? You get the answer. So therefore, how many people were coming is the subordinate noun clause, object of the infinitive to know, because you have asked the question what after this infinitive to know. Therefore, how many people were coming is a subordinate noun clause, object of the infinitive to know.